and it fits. Hello, we've got a new printer to try out, the Elegoo Neptune 3 Max, and it's a big boy. Let's get into it. Welcome to Making for Motorsport, where we make more, spend less and go faster. We've got a 3D printer in for a review today, and it's this, the Elegoo Neptune 3 Max, and it is a big boy. It's got a ridiculous print volume, so we're going to have a bit of a play with it. So we're going to set it up, see what it's like to do some first prints with. Is it newbie friendly? And then we're going to stretch its legs and do some big prints and also print some proper car parts on it. So first up, this printer was given to me for free by Elegoo for purposes of review. Now, they've not seen this video before it goes out, and they have no control over what I'm saying. These are all my own words. If you go to my website, you can see my review policy, which I ask every company to sign up to before I do a review. So you can be sure I am giving you my honest opinion. Now, I normally turn lots of these reviews down, but Elegoo's slightly closer to my heart because every Arduino Mega I've used for a Speeduino has been Elegoo, and they have not let me down yet. So it's a brand I trust, so I thought, hey, let's give it a go. Right then, let's stop messing around, let's get into it. So as you've seen, this 3D printer comes in a massive box, and it is really well packaged. It's only split down into 2 or 3 pieces, like the base and the gantry and the braces, so that makes it really quick and easy to get together. All the electrical connections are really well labelled, as are the fasteners, which are referred to in the manual, which is also clear and easy to follow. Overall, it only took me about 20 minutes to build it, and the fiddliest thing was having to do some of it one-handed so I could film it for you fine people on YouTube. There's only one thing I had an issue with, which is this sign here, which told me to check the voltage selector, which I could not find for love or money. I'm assuming it's somewhere on the power supply inside, which you couldn't get to without disassembly, which I'm not going to do on a brand new printer, so I just plugged it in. Second, space. You need lots and lots of space. So specifically, you need 94 centimeters for the bed throw, 75 centimeters of width, and 95 centimeters high if you're going to put a spool of filament on the top of it. So to make it fit, I had to turn the thing sideways. Luckily, Elegoo seems to have considered this with a nifty detachable touchscreen. Once you've found all the space you need, then it's time to level the bed. The manual again is as clear as you like. Grab some paper and you can do the manual leveling first. Dead easy to do. And then you hit the mesh leveling, and 63 points later, you are good to go. So the only thing left to do is to load some filament. I had some fetching green eSun PLA Plus knocking about, so that went in. Again, dead easy, following the instructions using the touchscreen. So now the printer's set up, we're going to slice a model and print on it, and I'm going to use the standard package slicer software, which is basically a skinned version of Cura. If you're not familiar with this, it's dead easy, and as a point, I'm going to use the standard inbuilt profiles with no tuning whatsoever. Anyone familiar with Cura or any of the other fairly standard slicing softwares won't find this a problem at all, and even if you're a total newbie, there's a very clear instruction manual. Let's go print it. So straight out the box, default profiles, it's printed a benchy perfectly well. It's took 1 hour and 51 minutes, so it's hardly a record breaker, but look at it. That's a pretty nice piece. I'm happy with that. So if you're watching the review on this channel, likelihood is you're going to do functional parts, so dimensional accuracy is important, so we did a 40mm test cube. Right then, so that is a really nice little calibration cube. Should be 40mm cubed, and yeah, okay, there's maybe some little layer lines you can see from some maybe heat changes and stuff, but perfectly good. So how does it measure up? So across X, it is 40.03, so 3/100ths of a millimeter too large. Ooh, even closer across Y, so 0.02 larger. And then on Z, 3.3 39.6263. So a bit further out, but still pretty close. So the printer's good on smaller stuff, detail stuff, and also it's fairly accurate on these kind of dimensions. But it's a big old printer and these are small things. So let's print something big. How does a 400% benchy grab you? Yep, I like the sound of that. We'll stick with the same material profile. We're just going to go to the extra fast. So we're just using the inbuilt profiles that come with the machine. So nothing that anybody couldn't do out there. So the only thing I'm going to change is we're going to change the infill down to 5% and turn the build plate adhesion off, because I've had no problems with the PEI textured plate. In fact, it gives a really nice little surface finish. So let's slice that, send it to the printer. So whilst that big boy's printing, let's talk about the specs and what the machine's actually got on it. And to be fair, we're going to need a bit of time because it's a decent list. So we've already talked about the capacitive touchscreen and the mesh leveling on the bed, both of which I think are well executed and really needed on a machine of this size. But it's got so many other bits to it as well. It's got a lovely dual-sided PEI spring steel build plate. It's got textured and smooth sides, and it's worked really well for me up to now. No adhesion issues at all. And it's got lots of other stuff on it. It's got dual lead screws on the Z-axis with dual steppers and a timing belt at the top to synchronize them, a filament run-out sensor, thumb screws for belt tensioning, quiet stepper drivers, dual gear direct drive extruder, so if you want to print some flexibles, you can do that dead easy. It's got twin part cooling fans, a really handy LED light strip, power cut resume printing, and it's got a lovely little tool drawer. Cute! What we haven't talked about is the print size, and it's huge. You can fit my old Ender 3 inside the build volume. You can fit my Bambu Lab X1C inside the build volume. It is absurd. So speaking of absurd, it's time to get this big benchy off the printer, as it's been 24 hours and look at it, it's magnificent. So in a bit more detail, look at the size of it. I mean, it's huge. I mean, that's a standard one there. Look at the difference. Insane. So how's it done? It's done really well. I mean, you'd expect, I mean, there's no real fine details on this anymore. I mean, the 3D benchy on the back is perfectly clear, but there's some big challenges with this when you scale it up, and that's things like the archways become more of a challenge, some of the overhangs, and the bridging. I mean, look at the top of this window here. I mean, this bridging, it's 4 centimeters worth of bridging on a completely untuned printer. There's a couple of kind of loose bits of filament, but nothing that a little bit of touch up wouldn't fix. But look at the size of it. This is now my prized possession. But it's time, I think, we did something a little more practical with the printer. And I've got a problem. So I recently went and did an event in my Mini, and it didn't work very well because I broke the drive shaft. Listen carefully. Yep, there it is. But as if that wasn't my only issue, on the 200-mile drive home on the trailer, it lost one of its wheel arches. So I could just go and buy a whole new set for like 40 quid. Or I could print it. Sounds like a lot more fun. Yeah, let's do that. But before I could print it on the massive build volume of the Neptune 3 Max, I needed a 3D model. Fortunately, I had the one from the other side. So I 3D scanned that and sent the STL to my mate Dave of dc3ddesign.co.uk, who then modelled it up properly in Fusion so it looked all pretty.
Thanks for the headache, Dave. That was a bit of a challenge.
By the way, David is available to do some custom design if you're interested, and he recently did this great work for a GI Yaris. But anyway, once I had the 3D model all nice and tidy, I then threw it at the printer and started printing. Unfortunately, the print failed because it looks like it's been pulled from the bed by the print snagging on this ribbon cable feeding the hot end. Now, if you check out Mandic Really's review of this printer, and I suggest you do because it is very good, then he's already spotted this issue and fixed it with a 3D print that is freely available on Thangs. So instead of reinventing the wheel, I downloaded that STL and sent it to my Bambalab X1C because I needed it quick. Half an hour later, it was printed and I was fitting it to the Neptune 3 Max. And so far, it's looking good. Which leads me to the first problem with the printer, in that I'm having to print replacement parts or upgrades for it this soon, especially as such an obvious issue. But in the scheme of things, it's not really a massive problem. And the solution is already out there, so thank you to Mandic Really. And if you guys are interested in more of the techie side of 3D printing, I suggest you check him out. It is a fantastic channel, highly underrated and unsubscribed, so go have a look. Which brings me to the second issue I have with this printer. It's slow. Now, it's a big old bed sling, and that is a big old heated bed to move around. So it's never going to be as fast as a smaller printer, a Core XY, or any of the new clipper-based bed slingers like the Neptune 4 or the Anycubic Cobra 2. But when it does move, it needs to move the plastic. So because it only comes with a 0.4 nozzle and with a fairly standard Mark 8 hot end that you'd get on a standard Ender 3, it means it's just not moving the plastic. For me, it's too much of a compromise. Yes, if it's going to be your only printer, stick with the 0.4 nozzle so you can do fine detail models, and the big stuff, you're just going to have to wait a bit longer for the big stuff. But as someone who's going to have it as their big printer, this thing needs to be faster on the big models. So that's the negatives of the printer out of the way. So I just went and started another print. However, I was using PETG and I was very unhappy with the surface finish, even after drying it for 12 hours and keeping it in a filament dryer. And I've never got on well with PETG, so I gave it up as a bad job and went to some PLA, and 17 hours later on the standard profile, the Neptune 3 Max gave me a wonderfully smooth, tidy print. And then printing the other side couldn't have been easier. Just used this button in the Cura-Base slicer and it flipped the model, and I just pressed print. 17 hours later, again, a lovely model in PLA off the Elegoo Neptune 3 Max. So I can only presume it's that PETG that is to blame. I've never got on with it. And there you have it, all fitted to the car, looking lovely. And they even show a bit of a weight saving as well. But it's going on a diet. Now I've spent a bit of time with this printer, would I recommend it? Absolutely. It's been a pleasure from the moment I opened the box all the way through to the last print, and it's got all the features that you would expect from a modern printer that just makes it a joy to use. Whether you're a newbie and this is your only printer and you want something flexible that you can do small things with and large format, or you're an experienced maker and you want a big boy to add to your arsenal, it will do that role for you. And it's only really the fact that it doesn't have the high speeds you get with clipper input shaping and maybe a more powerful hot end to help it melt some plastic faster that's holding it back as a printer. I'm going to pause myself there. Now, it's took me a while to get this review out for various reasons, and if you're a patron, you'll understand slightly more. But all of the downsides I flagged in this video and all of the negatives I just talked about have already been solved by Elegoo themselves with the Neptune 4 Max printer. Yes, the successor has already come out and it addresses pretty much all of those issues. It retains the same build volume, but it includes clipper with input shaping and pressure advance and all that good stuff So you get some really impressive speeds from a big bed slinger, 500 millimeters per second. And you've got all the other good stuff, including the massive build volume that we have on the Neptune 3 Max, minus about 20 mil at the top, and all of the other lovely features. And you've also got a 60 watt heater block that goes up to 300 degrees, so you can do the high-end materials, and you can also push a bit more filament with the bigger nozzles. So it looks like the Neptune 4 Max is going to be a fantastic printer, but none of that makes the 3 Max any less of a great printer. And if you can get one for the right price, because hey, the new model's just come in, and you don't mind waiting that little bit longer for your prints, well, I reckon you could bag a great machine at a great price. So if you've enjoyed this review, then please hit the thumbs up. It really does help. And consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this. Or if you really want to help, then head over to the Patreon and join these fine human beings here and maybe get a little bit extra. But that's it from me for now. So thanks for watching. Be good. And if you can't be good, don't get caught.